Hello, vintage outboard motor fans. This is T-Mike out here on Toledo Bend Lake, making another video today. Don't adjust your sets. There's nothing wrong with your computer or your phone that you're watching this. Yes, this is T-Mike sitting here with a Mercury motor. You won't see it that often. So this is going to be a unique video. It's going to be called the battle between Johnson, Evinrude, and Mercury. All right, the age-old battle between the OMC motors and the Mercury motors. All right, so it's going to be a three-part video. All right, first part is going to give you a little history of the Johnson, Evinrude, and the Mercury. Second part is going to give you the differences, the main differences between those brands, and then in the third part is going to be a summary. And I think you might know what my summary is going to be. So it's not going to be a high-tech video. We're not going to talk about pounds per square inch and horsepower. We're going to talk about the general differences for the beginner out there who's looking to get into the vintage outboard motor world, and hopefully I can give you some advice on which way to go. So the story behind this Mercury and why it's even here is because a customer named Dave from Toledo, Ohio contacted me and wanted me to restore his motors. He had two of his father's motors. He had an Evinrude 9.5 and a Johnson 5 horsepower. Wanted me to completely restore them. Perfect. Just the motors I work on. But he also had a Mercury and a Honda motor that he wanted me to just service. And I told him no. Well, he persisted, and because he was driving all the way from Toledo, Ohio, I agreed to it. So I'm in the process of restoring his two motors. They're looking beautiful, and now I'm in the process of servicing them. And it dawned on me that I needed to make a video to try to explain why I prefer a certain brand over another. So that's what this video is going to be about. So if everybody's ready, here we go. Okay, so part one, the history. All right, so the Johnson motors were started by a couple of brothers in 1903. Came out with the outboard motor. Combustible engine had just come about, and they were getting into the outboard motor world. And it started in 1983. The Evinrude motors started in 1907. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They started making their motors. And then the Mercury motors were started by a man named Kiefer in 1935. So those were the three major brands. They were Gales and Montgomery Wards and other offshoot brands, but basically Johnson, Evinrude, and Mercury were the three brands that competed against each other and made millions. Well, in 1935, OMC, all right, Outboard Marine Corporation, bought out Johnson and Evinrude, all right? So the deal was made with the two companies, Johnson and Evinrude. They would combine, and the motor itself, the parts and everything, would be migrated over from Johnson. Evinrude agreed to the deal only if they could keep their hood, their decals, and their colors. So to this day, if you take a Johnson and Evinrude 10 horsepower and you pull off the hoods on the two, the motors look exactly the same underneath. All the parts, the gears, the power head. The only thing different is the brackets that hold the hoods on, the hood itself, the color, and the decals. That's the only difference between the two, okay? So that's the history of the outboard motors in the vintage world. And now we're gonna move into part two, which is gonna be the T-Mike's opinion, the difference between OMC and Mercury is that the OMC products, Johnson and Evinrude, were made for the garage mechanic. In other words, garage mechanics like you and I could take a normal set of tools, standard American wrenches and sockets and screwdrivers, and work on them. Gear cases had 6 screws underneath. You unscrew the 6 screws, gear case comes apart, there's all your parts, all right? As opposed to the Mercury motors aren't that way. You have to have special pullers to get the gears out of the thing, and of course there's different horsepowers, so you have to have different pullers for each one. So that's the major difference I find between the OMC and the Mercury, is the OMC products are more made for geared toward the DIY guys like you and I, and the Mercuries are more made for you to have to bring it back in to a mechanic to work on it. Hard to work on yourself. That's my opinion. That's the major differences. Some of the other differences are the designs of it. I'm going to show you the one big difference I find that's a problem for me. The hoods on the Johnson Evinrudes, the Johnson hoods open up in the front and back so you can get to the spark plug and the carburetor. The Evinrudes open up side to side so you can get to the spark plug and the carburetor. The Mercuries, to get to the spark plug and carburetors, you have two handles you remove on the side. The hood comes off, and the rewind starter comes with the hood. So if you want to test for spark or compression, how do you pull the rope? It's in the hood. To me, not a good design. I mean, I just really think that there's some design flaws in the Mercuries that are not for me. Maybe for you and not for me. Which brings us to the third part, the summary. I guess you know what my conclusion is going to be. I like the Johnson and Evinrudes. When I first started doing this work 7 years ago, I started doing the Mercuries and the Johnson Evinrudes, and it didn't take me long to figure out which ones I liked. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was raised on a Mercury motor, all right? My high school days, my early adult life, I had a 9.9, no, I had a 20 horsepower Merc that we duck hunted and fished on. That thing was bulletproof. I ran it and ran it and ran it and never did. I ended up selling it. It was still running. So they're great motors, and I was raised on them. But if you got to work on them, I prefer the Johnson and Evinrudes. And up between the Johnson and Evinrudes, I prefer the Johnsons. My favorite outboards are the 1958 Johnsons. That's my test motors. I got the 3, 5.5, 7.5, 10, and 18. Those are my favorite motors. So that's the story between the Johnson Evinrude and Mercury battle that's been going on forever. And I'm sure there's a lot of Mercury people out there that are not going to like this video. And I understand you have your own preferences, but this is the T-Mike preference. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it. Don't forget, T-Mike has all the parts you need, to repair, service, and restore your vintage outboard motors. Just check out my eBay store, T-Mike Vintage Outboards on eBay. And if I don't have the part in my eBay store, contact me. I'll find it for you. I'm a parts broker. If you want all the parts to repair or restore your motor, all in one service, just contact me. I'll put you a package together, list it on eBay, and ship it to you. You can contact me here. My phone number is 337-278-5429. I love text messaging. Shoot me a text message. Give me the horsepower, model number, and brand of your motor, and I can provide any parts you need. And remember, always remember, and never forget, here at T-Mike's Vintage Outboards, we're doing it one motor at a time.